If you struggle with pain when you're reaching overhead, holding an object away from you, and you think you may have rotator cuff tendinitis or a rotator cuff issue or biceps tendinitis, they all kind of fall into the same camp. Go ahead and keep listening because we're going to talk tonight about an exercise that you can do to help decrease those symptoms. So I'm Dr. Sarah Sewell from Resilience RX, and tonight we are going to talk about rotator cuff and biceps tendinitis, tendinopathy. Somewhat similar, somewhat different. I'm going to link a blog post to this video so that you're able to read a little bit about the difference between the two. But to make a long story short, tendinitis is really only about 5% of the cases. It's incredibly overdiagnosed in the US and as a result often poorly treated. In order to get good treatment, you need a good diagnosis, and tendinopathy is typically what we're actually seeing when there is a shoulder issue with the biceps or with the rotator cuff. So the muscle in particular we're going to talk about tonight is the supraspinatus, which is the one part of the rotator cuff that I haven't really touched on in all the rotator cuff videos that I did back in January. That was the one muscle that kind of slid under the rug and just never got addressed because we spent so much time talking about other muscles. Well, this muscle is right about here. So if you find your shoulder blade, there's a line on that shoulder blade that's kind of pointy. That's your scapular spine. Scapula means shoulder blade. Above that, there's kind of like a triangular shape. The supraspinatus lies right there. Now, pain in this muscle can refer here. It can refer here. Very rarely does the pain actually occur where that muscle is located, which can make it kind of tricky to figure out, well, my pain's here, so my biceps tendon must hurt, right? Well, not necessarily. Sometimes the pain is just located there, but the problem is somewhere else, and we need to find the actual problem to fix the pain. So that muscle typically gives pain. When there's dysfunction in that muscle, you're going to get pain with reaching overhead. Typically, there's this arc of pain that us physical therapists like to call it. Very technical term, I know, but arc of pain. So initially, no pain. As you raise up around somewhere and through here, you get pain. And then very often that pain goes away and there's no more discomfort. So it's called that arc of pain. And the reason it's called the arc of pain is because that's the range of motion that supraspinatus muscle is preferentially working in. So between about here and here, when you're pushing overhead, that's that range where that muscle's working the most, which means if you haven't guessed it by now, you probably can. That's the range that we're going to work that muscle to help work out that dysfunction, increase the capacity of that muscle to tolerate load, because that's really what's going on. The muscle can't tolerate load in the point that it normally works. Therefore, we have to strengthen it so it's better able to tolerate that load so you don't get that pain when you're doing the motion that used to hurt. In order to do that, we grab a dumbbell. I now have a dumbbell. So you're going to take that dumbbell, you start at about chin height, and you go up to the top of your head. Now, I would recommend potentially doing this in the mirror the first few times because your chin doesn't start down here and the top of your head is not up here. And unless you're used to that range of motion, it can be kind of hard to figure it out sometimes. But this is that range of motion that you're going to work through, and your arm's going to get tired pretty quick. So this is only 15 pounds, but I'm already starting to get a pretty good burn in that muscle, and I kind of want to put the weight down because it's feeling kind of heavy. So that is what a couple of people have called the supraspinatus press. Very creative name, right? You're pressing the weight and you're preferentially working the supraspinatus. So that is that exercise that you're going to want to use to help target dysfunction in that part of the rotator cuff. So if you're getting pain with reaching, lifting overhead, and that pain's located here, maybe it is in the back of the shoulder. Regardless, that's the exercise you're going to want to use to target that muscle to get it better so you don't have pain, because that's the goal, right? Have a good night, everyone.